Good morning and welcome back, dear students. So as we were discussing in the previous videos about the types of osmotic solutions, we've also discussed about the transport mechanisms, right? So I would like to mention one thing over here, that as we have studied the types of osmotic solution, the hypertonic and isotonic solution. So if you remember, in the last video only I have mentioned about one more thing, which is the types of osmosis. Okay, so if the question comes specifically types of osmosis, then you have to mention about exosmosis and endosmosis. So this one, endosmosis is entry of water into the cell, which is equivalent to that of hypotonic solution, and exosmosis is withdrawal of water from the cellular system, which is about hypertonic solution. So if the question comes specifically what are the types of osmosis, you need to mention about endosmosis and exosmosis. And if it comes as the types of osmotic solutions, then, or the solution concentration, depending on the concentration, then you have to mention about the three types of osmotic solutions, right? So moving forward, now see, we were talking about the plasma membrane and how substances move in and out of the plasma membrane. So from the previous concepts, one thing which is very much clear to you is that the plasma membrane, because of its structure, is also very flexible, isn't it? It is able to take in the substances and move it out as well. So the substance, because of its flexibility, the substances which are, like, for example, the important materials through which the substances get inside the cell is what we call as endocytosis. I have seen in some of the answers, like in the assignment that was given to you, some of you have mentioned about this thing. I don't know whether you are actually clear about this term, but thought of clearing it out in this video. So see, endocytosis, whenever we hear the word endo, as just mentioned in osmosis, endo means something which is entering. So sorry, depending on the flexibility of the plasma membrane, when any substances is engulfed by the cell membrane, that is, it is ingested, it goes inside the cell membrane, it is called as endocytosis. You might have heard about the food taking mechanism of amoeba. Remember how amoeba extends its false feet around the food and engulfs it into its body, which in other term we have learned it as phagocytosis. Do you remember this term, phagocytosis? So phagocytosis is a type of endocytosis. Phagocytosis, also called as cell eating. So that was about amoeba. Now since we are talking about the animal and the plant cell, certain substances which is important for example, anything has to be entered, the cell will be eaten up. Like for example, now I'll give you one small minute example for this. If I talk about foreign particles, yes, some cell which is having any foreign pathogen has to be like destroyed. For that, the cell, I'm sure you have studied about lysosome last time. This year also we will study this session as well. So the lysosome will eat the foreign particle to destroy it. So the process by how a cell will eat it is what is phagocytosis. The same process how amoeba obtain its food. So the same thing, endocytosis is like phagocytosis is under endocytosis. How a cell is entered through the plasma, how a particular cell enters the plasma membrane. And the opposite of endocytosis is exocytosis. Okay, so opposite is exocytosis. If endocytosis is entering, exocytosis obviously will be eliminating. For example, certain substances inside the plasma membrane, that means inside the cell, the cell will have the organelles. Yes, the organelles will be having their own specific role to play. Now, for example, if any organelle is making proteins, which are necessary for formation of enzymes or hormones or whatever. So those enzymes and hormones, after being processed by the cell organelle, has to reach the blood. So how it is reached? They will form small vesicle. Vesicle means, you can say, small bubble-like structure will get fused with the plasma membrane. For example, if this is the plasma membrane, obviously inside the plasma membrane only all the cell organelles will be there. So for example, if any important protein has to come out of the cell membrane, then it will come near the plasma membrane, get fused to it, and then finally from the fused portion it will be eliminated out or excreted out to the cytoplasm. Yes, it will it will be excreted out, it will be eliminated out to the blood. Okay, so where the substances will get transported. So that is how the movement of substances, or that is how the substances can move in and out of the membrane, the cell membrane. Okay, so let's move on to the next portion, next topic, which is the cell wall. So now we will discuss specifically about the cell wall. Now cell wall is a rigid, okay, so cell wall is a rigid, semi-transparent, permeable, protective covering which is present specifically in plant cells. Okay, so cell wall is a rigid, semi-transparent, permeable, protective covering which is present specifically in plant cells. Cell wall is absent in case of animal cell. In animal cell, we have only the plasma membrane, whereas in plant cell, along with the cell membrane, that is the plasma membrane, there is an additional support which is the cell wall. The cell wall, I am sure you have studied it, is composed of cellulose. Yes, so the composition of cell wall is what? It is cellulose. What exactly is cellulose? It is a fibrous carbohydrate. Okay, it's a fibrous carbohydrate which cannot be digested by the human body or by the animal body. Yes, so it's a fibrous carbohydrate, and it is present in fungus as well. In fungi, the cellulose which is present in it is called as the fungus cellulose or the chitin. Okay, so that is present in case of plant cells specifically, and fungi, since they are kind of, even if it is under a total different set of microorganism, but yes, they exhibit the characters of the plant like organisms. So that is why they also have this additional cell wall support. But for them, it is basically a fungus cellulose or known as chitin. Right? So this is what cell wall is. Cell wall will protect the plant from various. Now since it is present in, why is it only present in plant? So there must be certain characteristics, right? There must be certain functions of cell wall. Why it is specifically present in plants but not in animals. Okay, so let us study about the functions of cell wall and why specifically in plant cell. Now see, the first function of cell wall is talking about the first function. The first function is providing mechanical support to the plant. Providing mechanical support to the plant. That means the plant cell, obviously the plants especially, has to undergo various natural calamities. Like animals, we are able to, like at the time of danger, we can move from place to place and protect ourselves from the adverse climatic conditions. But that is not present in case of plants. For plants, since they cannot move, yes, they are living beings, but they cannot show the movement. The movement means the mobility. Okay, so for this, the plants need to have an additional support, which is the cell wall. The cell wall will provide the plant with mechanical support, the rigid, the strong, the protective layer, which will enhance the ability of the plant to withstand various conditions. Okay, so that is the first and the foremost important function of a cell wall. Then along with it, number 2 is provides shape to the cell. Shape to the plant cell. Okay, so the plant cell will get its shape. The rigid, again as I told previously, is all because of the structure of cell wall. Okay, then the third important function of cell wall is it will protect against pathogens and mechanical injury. So it will protect against pathogens and mechanical injury. That means the cell wall, which is again it is quite similar to that of the first point. So since it is a very strong substance, cellulosic, so what happens is that it's just like a barrier. Like for us in our body, if I compare the human body, we have the WBCs, right? The white blood cells which will protect the body from the pathogens. For plant cell, it is the cell wall which will do this thing. Okay. Now the fourth and a very important point is, in case of plant cells, fungi and certain bacteria, basically, we have just learned about hypotonic environment, right? So what happens is that sometimes the plant cell, there is constant entry of water into the system. Okay, the surrounding media, there is constant. For example, the plants, since they'll have to take up the water from the roots, so there is a constant entry of water in the entire plant body, which sometimes can lead to hypotonicity. That is, the cell starts swelling up. So in that case, as we have studied, do you remember the last animation video that I have shown you? When there is too much of water entering the cell system, it can also lead to bursting of the cell. Remember? So the cell wall, which is having certain pores in its outer structure, the cell wall, since having pores, will be able to balance the amount of water entering the system. Because of the presence of the cell wall, the cells will exert a pressure. That means once the cells swell, there will be a pressure from the pressure against the cell wall. So as like, see, when anything is swelling up, we have also learned about when a cell is swelling up too much, it might even burst. But plant cells they are protective from such thing. Why? Because of the presence of cell wall. When the shape of the cell becomes too big, that is when the cells swell, the pressure from the cell wall will be able to put an exact and opposite pressure as equal to that of the pressure on the cell. So the pressure on the cell, whatever pressure is there, the same amount of pressure will be exerted against the cell wall, therefore leading the cell to remain intact position, and it will protect it from bursting. So what can we write the fourth point? The fourth point is cell wall will permits the plant cells, the fungi and bacteria to survive in extreme dilute conditions. Okay, dilute conditions. So because of this, dilute means the extreme high water concentration around the cell. So they'll allow it to survive in certain conditions as well. That is why you can also add a fifth point to it, is that because of such condition, the plant cells or the cells, the organisms which has cell wall, can withstand various conditions, like various variations in the environment. The variations in the surrounding environment can be withstood by such cells. Okay, so these are the 4 important points of the cell wall, functions of the cell wall. So it's a very important point from exam point of view, a question from exam point of view. So please note it down. Okay, so moving forward to the second point, which is nucleus. Why second? Now see, if you remember, when we were discussing about the components of cell, the first was plasma membrane, right? The second we discussed, the 3 components of cell are plasma membrane or cell membrane. Cell wall falls under it. Then number 2 nucleus, and number 3 is the cytoplasm. So nucleus, that is why I have written it as number 2. So don't make any confusion. Don't be confused with it. Now nucleus is the brain of the cell, the control center of the cell. Like the brain controls the human body, the same way the nucleus will control all the activities of the cell. Okay, so nucleus is present in almost all, it's present in all cells except obviously the red blood cells are devoid of nucleus. Anyway, so that is different. Now nucleus, which is a very important agent, if we talk about the type of organisms in which the nucleus contains, it is the eukaryotic organisms, right? Eukaryotic organisms will have a true nucleus. That means a nucleus and a membrane bound cell organelles. Whereas the opposite of eukaryotes are prokaryote. Yes. So prokaryotic cell will have no true nucleus. That means it will have a false nucleus. That means the nucleus for them, for the prokaryotic cell, like for example the bacteria, which is a unicellular organism, will be composed of mostly, nucleic acids only, right? So because of which the type of nucleus, false nucleus, where the prokaryotic organism, the type of false nucleus the prokaryotic organism has is known as a nucleoid. This also you have studied if you remember. Okay. So on the basis of this, the cell organelles and everything will differ. So eukaryotic cell will have all the membrane bound cell organelles because of the presence of nucleus, and division of cells and everything happens all because of nucleus. So we'll be discussing about nucleus in the next upcoming days, and also about the cell organelles. So at the end of the video, I'll be again putting an animation video of the structure of cell wall. See, since cell wall is a specificity of plant cell, so the video will be basically showing you the structure of plant cell, wherein the structure of the cell wall will be shown. Also the interior organelles will be also depicted, where the nucleus will also be taught. So please follow it. Yeah, definitely we have not, the video will be showing you we'll be talking about the cell organelles. So about all the organelles we'll be discussing in the upcoming days. So if you watch the video, you'll be able to keep some ideas that will help you in understanding the sessions that we go in the upcoming days. Okay, so that's it for today. Take care, stay safe, and goodbye.
All plants, even the huge trees you cannot climb, are made of tiny cells. Plant cells have cell wall over cell membrane, which give them extra structural strength. Green parts of plants can do photosynthesis because of this organelle chloroplast. Matured plant cells often have a big sac-like vacuole, which is storehouse of water or other important substances or waste. These are the speciality of plant cells. Plant cells also have nucleus, which holds the genetic materials and produces ribosomes. Ribosomes produce protein. Endoplasmic reticulum looks like network of flattened sacs, transports substances such as protein and the Golgi apparatus, which receive and modify the proteins as per need. The mitochondria are the powerhouse of cells which produce the ATP. ATPs supply energy to sustain life. So, tiny cell is more advanced than any factory humans have ever built.